Okay, so this little video clip is going to be illustrating the 4 questions that you have just been reading about. I have my 2 students here, and they have been presented. They have come to school, and they're sitting here in my classroom right now. And just like we've been doing, I'm going to start with an invitation. I'm going to say to my 2 students, is it okay if I show you my point of view?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, cool. So the way I start this out is I start out by asking everybody some questions. So the first question I'm going to ask you is, who is important to you? So, Gabe, what would you say what shows up inside of you when I say who's important to you?
Friends, family.
Friends, wait a minute, cool, friends, right, friends are important, right, and your family is important to you, very cool, okay? And we could even break that down into kind of, who the people in the family are, that kind of stuff, right? Anybody else that you want to put up there on the board is important to you?
My pet rats.
Your pet rats, all right, okay. You got 2 pet rats, right, and they are important to you, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm going to ask you what's important to you, which is a little bit of a different question, right?
Uh-huh.
So what's important to you?
What is important to me?
Think about all the stuff that you like to do. Like, what's important to you?
I play video games.
Video games, great. Play video games, right. And you play them, why? Because they are boring, and why do you play them?
Because they're like a interactive kind of story.
Yeah.
It's
And
a story.
do you have some fun when you're doing that?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's fun, right?
Uh-huh.
Okay. So you're kind of moving towards fun, playing video games. It's a bit of a story, and you kind of like the story, I guess, right, of the video game?
Yeah.
Cool. All right. So, Soph, who's important to you?
My mom.
Oh, your mom. Very good. It's good to put moms up on the board.
Mm-hmm.
Moms are very important people, right? Anybody else?
My dad.
Oh, okay, cool. Right. And your dad, right? Anybody else you want to put up there?
My brother.
Your brother. Okay, your brother is important to you. Great. So we got us a nice list of people. Now, what's important to you?
Reading.
Reading. Wow. Okay. And do you read for pleasure, or do you read for school, or what's that for when you're reading?
Pleasure.
For pleasure.
Yep.
So that's also a little bit of fun there, right? So what else besides reading?
Acting.
Acting. Wow. Cool. So that could be acting like moving you in the direction of like a career.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, cool. All right. Nice. All right. And then I'm going to ask a question. When you're moving toward your important people, and you probably spend a lot of time doing all this stuff, right? Moving toward important people and things, what would you say? What's that feel like when you're doing that? You're hanging out with your important people and doing your important stuff.
Good.
Feels good. Gabe, would you want to add to that?
Feels like I'm accomplishing something.
Like you're accomplishing something. Yes, absolutely, right. Okay. Right. And then now another thing, since we're kind of in school, is school at all important to you? Like your education, is that important to you?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So let's put that up on the board too, right? I mean, it might not be right there at the top of the list, right? But it's in there, right? Education is important, right? So you're probably doing stuff to move towards that too, right? So then what I want to do is then, as I slide over here, I'm going to ask you a different question, which is, stuff shows up inside of people that we don't want. And the thing that I notice that shows up inside of me a lot of times is this thing called fear. Fear shows up inside of me. I don't like it, and I'm going to try and do something to get away from it. So what do I do? Like if I'm standing out in the street and there's a car coming, and all of a sudden I look up, here comes a car. Fear shows up inside of me, and what do?
You freeze.
Well, you might, but then what?
Or you try to get out of the way.
Yeah, try to get out of the way. So I would come up here, and I would do something to get away from that fear. Exactly, right? So fear can actually work for you, right? It can actually help. It helps keep you alive, because if I didn't have fear, and I was walking around the street, what's going to happen to me after too long?
You're going to get hit by.
I'm going to get hit by. Right, exactly. So we can notice that too. So what kind of stuff shows up inside of people that kind of gets in the way? It kind of shows up here, and it gets in the way of doing the important stuff.
Regret.
Regret, yeah, absolutely. Regret will show up inside of people, right? What else shows up inside of people?
Anger.
Yes, anger. That's kind of maybe the number one thing that people tell me, including myself. I can notice some anger showing up inside of me sometimes, right? Even today I had some anger show up inside of me. So what else might show up inside of you that gets in the way?
Sadness?
Sadness, yes. That's the one thing. The other thing that people tell me is this thing called sadness shows up and it feels kind of heavy and you don't like it and you really kind of try to push it away, right? And anything else you want to put up there? How about thoughts? Any thoughts show up to get in the way?
Well, a lot of people are like afraid to try something new.
I'm
I don't know if that would go under fear.
Well, that would go, but then there's also a thought, right? I'm afraid to, right? Like if you're in school, what might be you afraid to do?
Take a test?
Yeah, exactly. Take a test. I'm afraid to take a test, right? And that thought might show up inside of you. Hey, I took a lot of tests in my time. And believe me, I wasn't going, ooh, I can't wait to take the test. A lot of times I had that thought along, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay, so now we know a little bit about who's important to you. You know a little bit about what's important to you. We have a little bit of an idea here of what shows up that kind of gets in the way. And then the next thing I do is I ask this question, which is, what do you do or what do people do to try to get away from the stuff that you don't want? So, for example, like, well, let's take anger, for example. What do people do to try to get away from anger?
Yell and
Yes,
scream.
absolutely. That is the number one thing that people do, is they yell, right? They might do some other things with their bodies, too, like what?
Wave their hands.
Yeah, wave their hands. Might you do something else with your hands when you're angry?
Chuck stuff.
Chuck stuff, yes. Chuck stuff. I like that. Chuck stuff. Can be very satisfying to chuck some stuff when you're angry, right? What else might people do when they're angry?
Kick stuff.
Yes, kick stuff. Ooh, you're on a roll there, Soph. Kick stuff. Very good. Right. How about if sadness shows up inside of people?
Cry?
Yeah, they might cry. Exactly, right? They might cry. And let's try this thought. If that thought shows up, I'm afraid to take a test and I'm trying to move away from that thought, what might I do?
Not go to school?
Yes, not go to school, right? Not go to school. I'm afraid to take the test, so I'm going to not go to school. People do that all the time, right? Okay. So the last thing I want to do is I want to ask this question, is what do you want to do, or what do you do to keep moving toward your important people or your important things? So think about it. Things that you do like all the time. Just the basic stuff. Like to move toward your friends, what do you do? Basic thing that people do to move toward friendship.
Talk to your friends.
There you go. You talk to your friends, right? You got them. You either talk to them, you call them up on the phone, talk to them in person. Some people actually talk to them in person. But a lot of people do what these days?
Skype.
Text?
Yeah, you Skype, you text, right? Text, Skype, Facebook, right? Let's put that in there, right? You Facebook your friends, right? Now it's even Instagram and all that Twitter stuff, right? So we can do that kind of stuff to move toward our friends. Can we be doing that to move toward our family too?
Yeah.
Yeah, could do that as well. Yeah, absolutely. And how about something else that you might want to do with your family?
Spend time with them.
Spend time with them. And what would you be doing if you were spending time with them? You'd be doing some kind of a action, right?
Play a board game?
Play a board game, right. Play a board game, exactly. Play a board game, yeah. All right. So to move toward, well, let's say acting, Soph. Let's pick acting. What would you do to move toward acting in a career?
Take acting classes and audition.
Oh, very good. Take acting classes. Very good. Take acting classes and audition. And let's try education. What would you do to move toward your education? Where are you right now?
School.
Yeah, you're in school, so the first thing is come to school, right? Come to school. And then when you go to school, you just kind of hang out in the hallways and just kind of say, I'm in school, and that's good. And what do you got to do next?
Are you going to take a class?
Yeah, go to class, yes. And then when you go to class, what's a good thing to do?
Learn. Pay attention.
Learn, pay attention, right. All right, cool. So now we've got our 4 different areas all lined up here. I know a little bit about who's important to you and the things that you do to move toward who's important to you and what's important to you. You've also told me how that feels, right? And over here we have the stuff that shows up inside that will get in the way for you, for me, for all of us, and then some of the things that people do to get away from that stuff, right? And we also know how that feels. So we're going to notice there's a difference between these toward moves, right, and how they feel, and these away moves and how they feel. And can you notice there's a difference between those two kinds of moves?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And who's the one noticing the difference?
Me.
There you go. Okay. So that's how we would set that up in the beginning.